Princess Adana, Chioma greeted warmly. You walk the market like an ordinary child, not like the queen's daughter. That is good. Adana smiled politely. Mama Chioma, your oranges look sweet today. They are, Chioma replied, handing her one. Then she lowered her voice. But your eyes, my child, they look heavy like a pot carrying water. What troubles you? Adana hesitated, then said softly, Mama Chioma, please tell me the truth. Why are there no men in our land? Once upon a time, there was a kingdom called Umueze. It was not like any other kingdom around it. For many generations, only women lived there. No man walked its roads, no male voice was heard in the markets, and no father sat in the courtyards to tell stories at night. In Umueze, queens ruled instead of kings. When a queen grew old and weak, her daughter would inherit the throne. The women farmed the land, fished in the rivers, built their homes, and raised their children without the help of men. To the young children born in the kingdom, this life seemed normal. But for some of the older girls, questions began to rise like smoke from hidden fire. The current ruler of Umueze was Queen Neora, a tall woman with a calm face and a voice that carried weight. She was respected and feared by everyone. Her only daughter, Adana, was 17 years old, bright-eyed and quick in speech. Unlike many of the girls in the kingdom, Adana was not satisfied with silence. She wanted to know why things were the way they were. One evening, after the sun had set and the moon was climbing the sky, Adana sat on a wooden stool outside the palace. Her close friend Obianuju joined her. Adana, Obianuju whispered as if sharing a secret. Your mother's voice shook the people again today at the council meeting. She spoke about the harvest, about the river that is drying up, and how we must dig new wells. Adana sighed. Yes, she speaks well. But Obianuju, don't you ever wonder about the things she does not speak of? Obianuju frowned. What things? Adana lowered her voice. Why there are no men in this land? Have you ever seen one? Have you even heard of one with your own ears, not from the lips of gossip? Obianuju quickly pressed her finger to Adana's lips. Higher! Don't say it so loudly. If the elders hear you, they will scold you. You know they say such questions are forbidden. But why forbidden? Adana asked, her eyes flashing. We are told not to ask, but the questions still live in our minds. How can there be only women? Did men ever exist? If they did, where did they go? Obianuju shifted uncomfortably. My grandmother once told me something. She said long ago, before her own grandmother was born, men walked this land. But one day, they all disappeared. She did not say why. Adana leaned closer. Disappear? How can men just disappear? That cannot be the whole story. There must be something hidden. At that moment, a firm voice interrupted them. Adana! It was Nyozi, one of the palace maids. Your mother is calling you. Hurry inside. Adana rose and followed, but her heart was still burning with questions. Later that night, Adana entered the queen's chamber. Queen Neora was seated on a carved wooden chair, her coral beads glowing under the firelight. Her eyes studied her daughter with sharpness. Adana, she said, I heard you sitting outside asking dangerous questions. Do you not know the law of our land? Adana bowed slightly. Mother, I mean no disrespect, but I only want to understand. Why must we not speak of men? Why must we act as if the word itself is poison? The queen's face hardened. Because it brings misfortune. The ancestors warned us. Long ago, our people broke an oath, and since then, men no longer live here. That is all you need to know. But mother, no more! Queen Neora's voice cut like a knife. You are my daughter, and one day you will sit on this throne. Do not let your restless spirit lead you astray. The strength of Umueze lies in our silence. Some doors must never be opened. Adana's lips trembled, but she swallowed her words. "Yes, mother." The queen dismissed her, but as Adana walked out, her heart whispered, "I will not rest until I know the truth." The next morning, the market square of Umueze was alive with voices. Women displayed their yams, cassava, palm oil, and woven cloth. Children ran about, their laughter filling the air. Adana walked with Obianuju among the stalls, buying fruits for the palace. They stopped at the stall of Chioma, an elderly woman with deep wrinkles and wise eyes. Chioma had lived longer than most people in Umueze, and many said she carried secrets of the past. "Ah, Princess Adana," Chioma greeted warmly. "You walk the market like an ordinary child, not like the queen's daughter. That is good." Adana smiled politely. "Mama Chioma, your oranges look sweet today." "They are," Chioma replied, handing her one. Then she lowered her voice. "But your eyes, my child, they look heavy like a pot carrying water. What troubles you?" Adana hesitated, then said softly, "Mama Chioma, please tell me the truth. Why are there no men in our land?" Obianuju gasped and tugged Adana's arm, but Chioma only chuckled, though her eyes grew clouded. "Ah, my child, that question again. I see the fire of curiosity burns in you. But be careful. Fire can warm and fire can destroy." "Please, Mama," Adana begged. "I feel as if my heart will not rest until I know." Chioma looked around to make sure no one was listening. She leaned close and whispered, "There was a time when men lived here, strong hunters, farmers, leaders, but they betrayed the goddess of the land. She cursed them, and one by one, they vanished. Only women remained. The elders keep this secret because they fear the curse may return if it is spoken too freely." Adana's eyes widened. "The goddess? Betrayed? How?" But Chioma shook her head. "Enough for today. You have heard more than most. Go, before your mother learns you came to me. Not every ear is safe." Adana wanted to ask more, but Obianuju pulled her away, her face pale with fear. That night, Adana could not sleep. She lay on her bamboo bed, staring at the roof. The words of Chioma repeated in her mind. They betrayed the goddess. She cursed them. They vanished. "What betrayal? What curse?" she whispered to herself. "Why must the truth be hidden? What if the story is different from what the elders say?" As she tossed on her bed, a strange sound drifted through the window, a faint whisper carried by the wind. It was not the voice of her mother, nor of any woman she knew. It sounded deep, almost like the echo of a man's voice. Adana sat up, her heart pounding. "Who is there?" she whispered, but there was no answer, only silence and the rustle of leaves outside. From that moment, she knew her journey had begun. She would not rest until she uncovered the truth buried deep in the history of Umueze, the truth of the kingdom without. The days in Umueze's kingdom passed quietly, but not for Adana. Ever since Mama Chioma whispered about the curse, her heart had carried questions like heavy stones. She tried to go about her duties, fetching water, learning the work of a future queen, greeting the people with a smile. But her mind was never at rest. One morning, she woke before the first crow of the cock. The night was still thick, and the moon hung pale in the sky. From outside her window, she heard soft voices, women's voices, rising and falling in a chant. Curious, she wrapped her wrapper tightly and tiptoed out of her chamber. The palace was quiet, but the sound came from the square in front of the old shrine. She followed carefully, keeping to the shadows. There, she saw a group of old women gathered around a small fire. Their backs were bent, their hair gray, their eyes closed as they sang in low tones. The words of their song struck Adana's ears. "O cave of shadows, where the men lie still, forgotten yet living, waiting for the chosen one." Adana's breath caught in her throat. Cave? Men? She pressed her palm to her chest as the women's voices wove the strange song into the night. She had never heard such words in her life. She stayed hidden until the chanting ended, then quickly ran back to her room before anyone could notice her. That night, sleep did not bring her peace. Instead, dreams came. In her dream, she stood at the mouth of a dark cave. From inside, she heard voices, deep, faceless voices. Adana, Adana, they called, soft yet powerful. She tried to see who was speaking, but shadows filled the cave. The voices grew louder, echoing until she woke with a start, her skin covered in sweat. She sat up on her bamboo bed, gasping for breath. Voices, she whispered. But from where? Is it real? Or only my mind? The next day, she met her friend Obianuju by the stream where they fetched water. The stream flowed quietly, reflecting the morning sun. Adana bent to fill her calabash, then said in a low voice, Obianuju, something strange happened to me last night. Obianuju glanced at her nervously. Strange? What do you mean? I heard the old women singing, Adana explained. They sang about a cave where shadows of men dwell. Then I dreamed of voices calling me. They were not women's voices. They sounded like men. Obianuju dropped her calabash with a splash. Chineke, why are you chasing these things? Can't you see they are dangerous? The elders forbid such talk for a reason. But don't you see? Adana pressed. The cave must exist, and if it does, then the story of men is not just an empty tale. There is something they are hiding from us. Obianuju shook her head, fear in her eyes. Adana, my friend, I beg you, leave it alone. Do not bring curses on yourself or on us. But Adana only grew more restless. That evening, she could not hold her questions any longer. She went to the queen's chamber, where her mother sat surrounded by her council of women, Ngozi, Ifeoma, and Amara. They were discussing the next market day when Adana entered. Mother, she said, bowing respectfully. Queen Neora looked up. Yes, my daughter, what troubles you? Adana took a deep breath. I have heard a song, an old song, about a cave where shadows of men dwell, and I have dreamed of voices calling me from such a place. Mother, what does it mean? Does the cave truly exist? The room fell into silence. The women exchanged uneasy glances. The queen's face hardened, and her voice rose sharply. Who told you such nonsense? Adana's heart raced. No one told me. I only heard the chanting of the elders. I only want to know the truth. Queen Neora slammed her staff against the floor. Enough! The cave is forbidden. You must never speak of it again. But mother, silence! The queen thundered, her beads rattling on her neck. Do you want to bring ruin upon us all? That cave is cursed. It holds only death. No daughter of mine will defile her lips by speaking of it. Do you hear me? Adana's eyes stung with tears, but she stood her ground. Mother, I am not a child anymore. I deserve to know what is hidden from us. Why should we live in darkness if the truth is there? The queen rose from her seat, her face blazing with anger. Adana, do not test me. You are my blood, but I will not spare you if you disobey the law of this land. Forget the cave. Forget the whispers. Forget the dreams. If you love your people, you will bury these questions in silence. Adana trembled but lowered her head. Yes, mother. The queen dismissed her with a wave of her hand, but as Adana turned to leave, she heard one of the council women, Ifeoma, murmur softly, "The girl dreams. It has begun." The queen shot her a warning glance, and Ifeoma bowed her head quickly. That night, Adana wept quietly in her bed. She felt torn between love for her mother and the burning fire in her heart. Why did the queen fear the cave so much? Why did the mention of it bring such anger? As she lay in the darkness, the dream returned. Again she stood before the cave. Again the voices called her name, but this time the sound was stronger, urgent, almost pleading. Adana! Adana! Come! She covered her ears, whispering to herself, I must know. I cannot stop now. The truth is waiting for me, even if the whole world forbids it. Her suspicion grew deep. like roots sinking into the soil. Something about the queen's anger told her the truth was very near, and Adana, restless and bold, was determined to find it, even if it meant breaking the laws of Umueze. The palace of Umueze carried many secrets, but Adana did not know she would find one of the greatest hidden inside her own bloodline. Her grandmother, Mama Ozioma, was no longer alive, but she had once been known as a wise woman and close advisor to the late queen. People said Mama Ozioma had always kept strange books and scrolls, things other women feared to touch. One evening, after another restless day of questioning, Adana found herself wandering into the old storeroom at the back of the palace. Dust filled the air and cobwebs clung to the rafters. The room smelled of forgotten years. She lit a small oil lamp and looked around. Most of the shelves were filled with broken calabashes, worn baskets, and old mats. But in one corner, under a faded cloth, she saw a small wooden chest. Its surface was carved with symbols she had never seen before. Her heart quickened. She knelt, pushed the chest open, and inside she found rolled up scrolls tied with palm rope. She reached for one carefully, her fingers trembling. When she unrolled it, the ink was old but still clear. At first, she saw drawings, tall figures with broad shoulders and beards. Men, she gasped. Beneath the drawings were words written in Igbo. She began to read slowly, her voice shaking. In the beginning, Umueze was a land of both men and women. The goddess of the land, Ezemuo, gave them a sacred vow. Men and women must honor the bond of trust and never betray the balance of the earth. But the men grew proud. They hunted too much. They took more than their share, and they broke their oath to the goddess. Adana's eyes widened. She read on. In anger, the goddess cursed the men. She took their bodies from the land and trapped their spirits in the dark cave of shadows. From that day, only women remained to rule Umueze. The curse would last for many generations until the day a chosen daughter is born. One who would have the courage to face the shadows and decide the fate of men. She will either free them or seal their end forever. Adana's hand shook so much that the scroll nearly slipped from her fingers. She pressed it against her chest and whispered, "So it is true. Men once lived here, and they were cursed by the goddess herself." She set the scroll down and picked another. It spoke of the prophecy. The chosen one will be restless. She will dream of voices. She will not fear questions. She will walk toward the cave, though all will warn her away. Her decision will shape the kingdom for all time. Adana's knees grew weak. The words burned into her heart. Restless, dreaming of voices, walking toward the cave. Was this prophecy speaking of her? Later that night, she took the scrolls to her chamber and hid them beneath her mat. She sat on her bed, her mind racing. When Obianuju came to visit her the next day, Adana could not hold the secret. She locked the door and whispered, "Obianuju, I have found something that changes everything." Obianuju frowned. "What now, Adana? What dangerous thing have you brought me into this time?" Adana brought out one of the scrolls and unrolled it before her friend. Obianuju's eyes widened at the drawings of men. "Chineke," Obianuju gasped. "These are men, so they truly existed?" "Yes," Adana said, her voice urgent. "And not only that, they were cursed. Their spirits are in the cave. And listen," she tapped the words. "It says one woman will rise, chosen to decide their fate. Obianuju, what if that woman is me?" Obianuju clutched her wrapper tightly. "Adana, don't say that. Do you want to bring trouble on yourself? If the queen or the elders find out you have these scrolls, they may punish you. Please let us burn them and forget everything." Adana shook her head firmly. "No, if the goddess has chosen me, then this is my path. I cannot close my eyes and pretend I do not know. The voices in my dreams are real, Obianuju. They are calling me to the cave. The prophecy matches my life." Obianuju's face twisted in fear. What if freeing the men brings disaster? What if the goddess punishes us all again? Adana touched her hand gently. And what if it brings healing? What if we are meant to live together again, men and women? Should we remain half a people forever? Obianuju had no answer. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, I fear for you, Adana. I fear where this path will take you. That evening, Adana gathered courage and went to her mother's chamber. The queen sat alone, the weight of rulership heavy on her shoulders. Mother, Adana said softly. The queen looked up. What is it this time? More restless questions. Adana swallowed hard. I went into the old storeroom. I found grandmother's chest. I read the scrolls. The queen froze, her eyes narrowing. You what? I know the truth now, Adana continued bravely. Men were cursed because they broke the vow of the goddess. Their spirits are trapped in the cave. And there is a prophecy about a chosen daughter who will decide their fate. Mother, the words describe me. The queen rose slowly, her face pale with both anger and fear. Adana, do you realize what you have done? Those scrolls were hidden for a reason. Your grandmother begged me never to open them, never to let anyone read them. They carry danger. But why hide the truth, mother? Adana pressed. Why raise us in silence and lies? Do you not see that the prophecy is already happening? I am the one the voices call. I am the one who cannot rest. Queen Neora's voice trembled. Because I am afraid. Do you not understand? If you step into that path, you may bring destruction upon us all. The curse is not a story. It is power. Your grandmother told me once that the chosen child would come from our bloodline. I feared it, and now it is you. Adana's heart pounded. Then it is true. I am the one. The queen covered her face with her hands. My daughter, I have ruled this kingdom in peace for many years. I have carried the burden of silence. But your spirit is wild. You will not stop until you reach the cave. And I cannot hold you forever. Adana stepped closer and took her mother's hands. Mother, trust me. Maybe this curse has lasted too long. Maybe it is time to face it. If the goddess cursed men, then perhaps she left a path of mercy too. I must try. The queen shook her head, tears filling her eyes. You are my only child. If I lose you to the shadows, what will become of me? What will become of Umueze? Adana's voice was steady. If I do nothing, mother, the kingdom will remain trapped in silence. But if I face the cave, maybe I will bring freedom. I feel it in my bones. I was born for this. That night, Adana lay awake, the scrolls hidden beneath her mat. She stared into the darkness, her heart full of fear and fire. The words of the prophecy echoed in her mind. The chosen one will dream of voices. She will walk toward the cave. She will decide the fate of men. Adana knew her path was no longer hers to choose. The prophecy was alive in her blood, and soon she would walk toward the forbidden cave. Life in Umueze changed suddenly. What began as small, unusual things soon grew into signs that no one could ignore. It started one evening at the stream. Women had gone with their calabashes to fetch water. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. But as the first rays touched the river, the water turned red like palm oil. The women screamed and dropped their calabashes. Chineke! The river has turned to blood, one woman cried. The news spread quickly through the kingdom. Mothers ran home, warning their children not to drink the water. Some said it was a trick of the sun, but others shook their heads, whispering that the goddess was sending a message. Not long after, the farmlands began to dry. Yams that once grew large and heavy became small and bitter. Cassava stalks withered before they could be harvested. The women who farmed daily sat on the ridges and wept. How will we feed our children? Asked Neka, a mother of 4, as she pulled up a dry plant. It is the goddess, said Amarachi, another farmer. She is angry with us again. Then came the worst of all, the sickness. Children who were once healthy began to fall ill with fevers that did not break. They coughed through the night, and their mothers prayed and wailed, but the herbs brought little healing. In the palace courtyard, Queen Neora sat on her stool, her face heavy with worry. The elders of Umueze gathered before her, Mama Ifeoma, Mama Amaka, Mama Irena, and the oldest of them all, Mama Ebele. Mama Ifeoma spoke first. My queen, the land is speaking. Rivers red, farmlands dry, children sick. These are not ordinary troubles. The goddess is angry. Mama Irena added, it is true. These are warnings. If we do not act, greater disasters will come. The queen pressed her hand to her forehead. But why would the goddess be angry? Have we not kept the laws? Have we not lived in silence about the forbidden things? The elders exchanged uneasy looks. Finally, Mama Ebele leaned forward, her voice low and shaky. The signs began after your daughter's questions. Have you forgotten the prophecy? When the chosen child rises, the land will shake, and the goddess will demand a decision. The queen's heart dropped. You mean Adana? Yes, Mama Ebele whispered. She is the one, and until she faces the truth, the land will suffer. The queen's chest tightened with both fear and sorrow. Meanwhile, Adana herself was tormented. Each night her dreams returned stronger. The voices echoed from the cave, no longer soft, but desperate. Adana, free us. Our time has come. She would wake with her body trembling, sweat soaking her wrapper. She could not eat well, and her eyes grew hollow with lack of rest. One morning, Obianuju came to her room and gasped, Adana, you look ill. What is happening to you? Adana sat at the edge of her bed, clutching her knees. It is the dreams. The voices are louder now. They plead for freedom. And when I wake, the land is full of signs. The rivers, the farms, the sickness, it is all connected. Obianuju's eyes filled with tears. Then it is true. You are the chosen one. Adana looked away. But what if I fail, Obianuju? What if facing the cave destroys me? My mother fears I will bring ruin, not healing. Obianuju knelt beside her, holding her hand. You have always been brave. Even as a child, you stood where others ran. If the goddess chose you, then she knows you can bear it. Maybe you are our only hope. Adana's heart swelled with both fear and resolve. That evening, the queen called her daughter into the courtyard. The elders were present, their faces grave. The air was heavy with silence as Adana approached. My daughter, the queen said, her voice tired, the land suffers. The people whisper that the goddess is angry. Some say it is because of you. Adana lifted her chin. Because I am the chosen one? The elders murmured among themselves. Mama Amaka spoke. Yes, child, the signs match the prophecy. Only you can bring balance again. The goddess will not rest until you face the cave. The queen turned sharply to the elder. Do not push my daughter into danger. She is still young. Must she carry the weight of the whole kingdom? Mama Ebele looked at the queen sadly. My queen, you cannot fight destiny. The signs will not stop until the prophecy is fulfilled. If you hold her back, you may destroy us all. Adana stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. Mother, I cannot run from this. The voices will not leave me. The land is crying. The people are afraid. If I do nothing, we all suffer. If I go, maybe there is hope. The queen's eyes filled with tears. She rose, touched Adana's face, and whispered, You are my only child. How can I let you walk into darkness? Adana held her mother's hands. Because the darkness is calling me, and if I do not go, it will swallow us all. The queen broke into sobs and turned away. The elders nodded, murmuring prayers to the goddess. That night, fear spread across Umuez like wildfire. In the market square, women whispered as they sold their goods. The queen's daughter dreams of the cave, one said. They say she is the chosen one, another replied. But what if she fails? What if freeing the men brings war? Mothers clutched their children tightly, praying for healing. Farmers begged the skies for rain. Every heart carried the same unspoken thought. All depends on Adana. In her chamber, Adana lit a small lamp and unrolled the scroll again. The words of the prophecy glowed in the dim light. The chosen one will dream of voices. She will not fear the shadows. She will carry the hope of her people and decide the fate of men. Adana whispered to herself, I am afraid, but I cannot turn back. The voices came again, soft but urgent, echoing through her mind as she drifted into uneasy sleep. Adana, Adana, the time is near. And deep inside, Adana knew the signs were not only warnings, they were a call. Her journey to the forbidden cave would soon begin. The night was quiet, yet Adana's heart beat like the sound of a talking drum. She could no longer sleep. The dreams had returned again, stronger than before. Voices called her name, soft but firm, like the wind that moved through tall palm trees. Adana, Adana, come. She sat up from her bamboo bed, her hands trembling. She looked around her room, lit only by the faint glow of a clay lamp. The carved stool by the corner, the calabash of water by the mat, everything seemed normal. Yet she felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her. The queen, her mother, had forbidden her from speaking of the cave. But the land was suffering, the streams were drying, the children were falling sick, and the farms yielded little. She could not remain silent. Something inside her told her that she had to go. At dawn, Adana dressed in a simple white wrapper and tied her hair with a piece of cloth. She did not want anyone to notice her. She carried only a small gourd of water and a staff carved by her grandmother. As she stepped out, the palace guards greeted her, but she only nodded, pretending she was going to the stream. Adana, one of them, Chinyere, called out, "The morning is still dark. Do you want me to walk with you?" She forced a smile. "No, I am fine. I only want to fetch some fresh water." She walked quickly, her bare feet brushing against the cool earth. The farther she went, the heavier her heart grew. She was leaving behind the safety of the palace and entering a journey no one dared to take. As the sun slowly rose, Adana entered the thick forest. Tall Iroko trees stretched above her, their branches whispering secrets in the wind. Birds called out, and small creatures ran through the bushes. She walked with careful steps, clutching the staff tightly. Hours passed, and the forest grew darker. Suddenly, the sky changed. Clouds gathered quickly, covering the sun. A wild storm rose without warning. The trees shook violently, leaves and branches falling around her. Thunder roared, and heavy rain began to pour down. Adana stopped and lifted her hands to shield her face. The wind pushed her back, almost throwing her to the ground. "This is a test," she whispered to herself. "If I turn back now, I will never know the truth." She pressed on, each step sinking into the wet mud. Her wrapper clung to her skin, her hair loosened, and the staff was her only support. She fell many times, but each time she rose again. "Adana, Adana," the voices whispered through the storm. At last, the storm passed. The sun returned, shining through the wet leaves. Adana collapsed under a tree, breathing heavily. She was weak, but inside, her heart burned with courage. Not long after, as she continued deeper into the forest, she noticed a pair of glowing eyes watching her from the bushes. She stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, a great leopard stepped out, its golden body shining in the light. Its tail swayed, and its teeth flashed. Adana trembled, but did not run. She remembered her grandmother's words. "Fear feeds wild things. Courage tames them." She held her staff tightly and spoke softly, her voice shaking but steady. "I am not your enemy. I seek only the truth. If the goddess has sent you to stop me, then do what you must. But if she has sent you to test me, then know that my heart is pure." The leopard growled, circled her slowly, then stopped. Its eyes met hers, and for a moment, time stood still. Then, as if satisfied, the animal turned and disappeared back into the trees. Adana sighed in relief. She wiped the sweat from her face and continued walking. As evening fell, she reached a clearing. At the center stood a woman unlike any she had ever seen. The woman's skin glowed like bronze in the fading sun, and her hair flowed like waves of water. She wore a white cloth that touched the ground, and around her neck hung beads that shimmered with light. Adana froze. She knew this was no ordinary woman. The spirit woman smiled gently. Adana, daughter of Umueze, why do you walk this dangerous path? Adana bowed her head. I seek the forbidden cave. I seek the truth of our land. The woman's eyes softened. Many have feared this path. Why do you not turn back? Because my people suffer, Adana replied, her voice breaking. The rivers dry, the children are sick, the farms die. I cannot close my ears when voices call me every night. I must know why. The woman circled her, studying her closely. The heart of a leader is not measured by beauty or power, but by sacrifice. Tell me, child, if you must choose between saving your people and saving yourself, which would you choose? Tears filled Adana's eyes, but she answered without delay. I will save my people, even if it costs me everything. The spirit woman touched Adana's forehead with her glowing hand. Your heart is true. Your spirit is pure. You may go on. But remember, truth is heavy. Once you carry it, you cannot put it down. With those words, the spirit faded into the air like smoke. At last, after days of walking, Adana reached a high hill covered with thick vines. Her heart raced as she climbed, her body weak, but her will strong. There, hidden between two giant rocks, was the mouth of the cave. It was dark and deep, and from within came a cold wind that smelled of ashes and forgotten time. Adana stood still, clutching her staff with trembling hands. The voices returned, louder than ever. Adana, we wait, we wait. She closed her eyes, tears running down her cheeks. Every part of her wanted to run away, but something stronger held her in place. This is why I was born, she whispered. This is where the truth begins. With a deep breath, she stepped closer to the cave. The earth shook beneath her feet. The wind grew stronger, pulling her hair and wrapper. The cave seemed alive, like a giant mouth ready to swallow her. Adana stood firm. She lifted her staff and raised her voice. I am Adana, daughter of Umueze. I come not with fear, but with truth in my heart. If this is my path, then let it be so. The cave roared back, echoing her words. Darkness pulled at her, yet she did not move. She stood at the mouth of the cave, trembling but determined, ready to face whatever waited inside. And so, the journey of Adana reached its turning point, the chosen daughter, standing before the secret that had shaped her people for generations. The cave swallowed Adana in silence. Only the sound of her footsteps echoed on the wet ground. The air was cold, heavy, and damp, and a faint mist floated around her. Her torch, a dry palm branch wrapped in cloth and lit by fire, flickered as if afraid of the darkness that pressed in on all sides. She tightened her grip on her grandmother's staff. I am not afraid, she whispered to herself, though her body shook. I must see this through. The deeper she went, the more the walls seemed to close in. Strange markings covered the stones, symbols she had never seen before. At times, she thought she heard whispers, but whenever she stopped, there was only silence. Then suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew out her torch. Darkness fell like a blanket. Adana! Her name floated through the cave, deep and hollow, not like the dream voices, but heavier. Sorrowful. Her heart pounded. She lifted her staff and stepped forward blindly. Who calls me? She asked, her voice trembling. From the shadows, shapes began to appear. They were not solid like humans, yet not smoke either. They were tall, bent figures, with hollow eyes that glowed faintly. Their movements were slow, as if weighed down by years of pain. The cave seemed full of them, shadows upon shadows. Adana gasped and staggered back, but instead of attacking, the figures bowed their heads low. You have come, one said, in a voice like dry leaves rustling. The chosen daughter, the one we have waited for. Adana swallowed hard. Who are you? The shadows stirred, and from among them, one stepped forward. His figure was taller, stronger, and his glow brighter than the rest. His voice was steady, but heavy with regret. I am Obinna, once the king of Umueze. These are my brothers, the men who once lived in this land. We are not dead, yet not alive. We are cursed, trapped in this darkness for generations. Adana's heart thumped loudly in her ears. She gripped her staff tighter. Why are you cursed? What happened? The Shadow King's head bowed low. We betrayed the goddess who gave us this land. She trusted us, blessed us with fertile soil, rivers that never dried, and wives who bore strong children. But greed entered our hearts. We desired more power than she had given us. We plotted to overthrow her, to claim her throne. The other shadows groaned softly, their voices filled with shame. Obinna continued, his voice breaking. When she discovered our betrayal, her anger shook the earth. She struck us down, not with death, but with shame. She took away our bodies and left us as shadows. She banished us to this cave so we could never see the sun again. She declared that women would rule Umuez, for men had chosen pride and war instead of peace. Adana's knees weakened, and she sat on a stone. So the stories were true, she whispered. All this time, the elders kept it hidden. The shadows pressed closer, their forms flickering like candlelight. Obinna reached out a smoky hand toward her. Adana, child of the new queen, you are the one the prophecy speaks of. Only you can break the curse. Only you can free us. Her eyes widened. Free you? How? By calling upon the goddess again, Obinna said. By speaking for us, by begging her to forgive. She will listen to you because your heart is pure. Adana shook her head slowly. And if I free you, what then? The cave fell silent. The shadows shifted uneasily. Adana's voice grew firmer. Tell me the truth. If I set you free, will you live in peace or will you return to pride and war? Obinna's form flickered. His silence was louder than words. At last he answered, we cannot promise what lies in the hearts of men. We are not evil, but desire is strong. Freedom carries both peace and danger. One of the other shadows cried out, his voice harsh. We only want to see the sun again. We want to hold our wives, to raise our children. Have we not suffered enough? Another shouted. Would you let us rot here forever? You are our only hope. The cave filled with voices, desperate, pleading, angry. Their hollow eyes glowed brighter, and their forms shook with restlessness. Adana covered her ears, her heart torn. Tears streamed down her face. Enough, she cried. I cannot choose blindly. If I free you and you destroy the land, my people will suffer. If I leave you here, then your pain continues. What am I to do? Obinna stepped closer, lowering his voice. Child, we beg you, do not judge us only by our past. Give us another chance. We have learned in this darkness what pride costs. We want only to live again. Adana searched his glowing eyes, but doubt gnawed at her. She thought of her mother, the queen, and the women who ruled. She thought of the rivers running dry, the children coughing at night. Was all of this tied to the curse? Was she meant to bring balance or destruction? Why me? She whispered. Why not another? Obinna's voice grew soft, almost fatherly. Because your spirit is different. You do not hunger for power. You hunger for truth. Only such a heart can carry the weight of this choice. The shadows bent low, stretching their smoky hands toward her like beggars. Their voices rose again in one long, sorrowful chant. Free us! Free us! Free us! Adana's hands trembled around her staff. She shut her eyes tight, trying to block out their cries, but they echoed in her soul. For the first time in her life, she wished she were not the queen's daughter. She wished she were just another village girl who could walk away. But the voices in her dreams had brought her here. The signs in the land had pointed to this moment. Whether she liked it or not, the choice rested with her. Opening her eyes, she stood tall, her face wet with tears. She raised her staff, and the shadows fell silent, waiting. I hear your pain, she said firmly, her voice echoing through the cave. I see your sorrow, but I cannot rush this choice. I must seek the goddess herself. Only she will tell me what must be done. The shadows groaned, some in relief, some in despair. Obinna bowed his head. Then go, daughter of Umueze, seek her, but remember, time is short. Your people suffer, and so do we. Do not delay." Adana turned away, her chest heavy with fear and pity. As she walked back toward the mouth of the cave, the shadows' voices followed her, soft and haunting. "Free us! Free us! Free us!" When she stepped into the light of day, she fell to her knees and wept. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. The men of Umueze lived still, but as shadows of their former selves. And now, the fate of both men and women rested in her trembling hands. The path back from the cave felt endless, yet Adana's heart carried more weight than her tired feet. She had seen the shadows of men, their hollow eyes begging for freedom. Their cries still echoed inside her chest. As she reached the edge of the forest, she sat under a tall palm tree, her staff across her lap. The sun was sinking and the evening sky glowed red. The rivers had turned this same color days ago, a sign of the goddess's anger. Adana's spirit trembled. "What do I do?" she whispered, covering her face with her hands. "If I free them, I may bring danger. If I leave them, they will suffer forever. What choice can I make?" Her tears fell to the earth. The wind picked up suddenly, rustling the trees with a sound like drums. The ground beneath her shook, and a sharp light broke through the sky. Adana lifted her head, her eyes wide with shock. From the light stepped a figure more radiant than anything she had ever seen. Her skin shone like the morning sun, her eyes sparkled like clear water, and her hair flowed like dark silk. Around her shoulders was a cloth brighter than fire, and in her hands she held a staff that glowed with power. Adana dropped to her knees instantly. "Great goddess!" she cried. The goddess's voice was calm but mighty, echoing like thunder and yet soft like a mother's song. "Adana, daughter of Umueze, rise. Do not fear me. I have watched your steps. I have seen your courage." Adana stood slowly, her head bowed, her body trembled, but she forced herself to look up. "Why have you come to me, great mother of the land?" The goddess's eyes shone brighter. "Because the time of choice has come. The curse of the man has lasted for many generations. You alone have walked into the cave and spoken with them. Now you must decide." Adana's throat tightened. "Me? How can I decide something so heavy? I am only one girl." "You are more than one girl," the goddess said gently. "You are the voice of your people. You are the bridge between what was lost and what can be restored." Adana shook her head. "But if I free them, they may return to pride and greed. They may bring war again. My people have lived in peace without them. The women rule well, and we have survived." The goddess lifted her staff, and the light around her grew brighter. "Peace without balance cannot last. You have seen the signs, the rivers drying, the children falling sick. The land cries because its circle is broken. Men and women were created to walk together, but betrayal shattered that bond. My curse was justice, but now the power to heal or to continue lies with you." Adana's eyes filled with tears. "And if I do nothing, then the shadows will remain trapped forever, and your kingdom will remain as it is. Only women, ruling, planting, raising children. But the land will continue to groan. The rivers will not fully heal. The sickness will spread. That is the price of imbalance." Adana fell to her knees again, sobbing. "Why me, goddess? Why must this choice rest on my shoulders?" The goddess bent low, her hand resting lightly on Adana's head. "Because only a heart that feels the pain of both sides can decide. You have seen the suffering of your people, and you have seen the sorrow of the shadows. No one else has carried both truths. That is why it must be you." For a long moment, silence filled the air. Only the sound of the wind through the palm trees remained. Adana finally whispered, "If I free them, will they truly change?" The goddess's face grew grave. "I cannot promise what lies in the hearts of men. Freedom is a gift, but it also reveals hidden desires. Some may walk in peace, others may return to greed. That risk is real. If you choose to restore them, the kingdom will face trials again. but it will also have the chance for wholeness. If you do not, the kingdom will remain safe but broken. Understand this, child. Whichever path you choose will last forever. Adana's hands tightened around her staff. The weight of those words sank deep into her bones. Forever. She thought of her mother, the queen, strong but weary. She thought of the farmers crying over dying crops, of mothers holding weak children, of elders shaking their heads in fear. Then she thought of the shadows, men without bodies, trapped in darkness for generations, begging only to see the sun. Her heart tore in two. The goddess straightened again, her eyes glowing like fire. I will not force your hand. The power is yours. Choose, Adana. Lift the curse or let the kingdom remain as it is. But know this, once you speak, your choice will bind the future of Umueze forever. Adana wiped her tears. She stood tall, though her body shook. If I choose to lift the curse, what must I do? You must return to the cave, the goddess said. You must strike the earth with your staff and call upon my name. Then I will hear you, and the shadows will rise again as men. But if you decide against it, you must burn the scrolls of their history, close the cave with your own hands, and never speak of them again. Adana's chest rose and fell quickly. Both paths terrified her. Both paths would change everything. The goddess stepped back into the shining light. I will appear no more. The next time you call my name will be your final choice. Remember, daughter, forever rests in your lips. The light grew brighter and brighter until Adana had to cover her eyes. When she opened them again, the goddess was gone. Only the sound of the night crickets filled the air. Adana stood alone under the palm tree, her staff in hand. She lifted her eyes to the sky, where stars now filled the darkness. My people suffer, the shadows suffer, and I am only one heart between them, she whispered. But whatever I choose, it must be for the good of all. Her tears fell once more, and she began walking back toward the village, her steps heavy with the burden of choice. The night after the goddess appeared, Adana could not sleep. She lay on her bamboo bed, staring at the ceiling, while the moonlight streamed through the window. Every word of the goddess echoed in her mind. Choose, Adana. Lift the curse, or let the kingdom remain as it is. Whatever you decide will last forever. She turned restlessly, her heart torn. If she freed the men, she risked her people's peace. If she left them trapped, she condemned them to endless suffering. At last, she rose from the bed. She walked to the corner of her room where her grandmother's staff rested. She lifted it gently, holding it close to her chest. Great Spirit of the land, she whispered, guide me. I am only a daughter, yet my voice now carries the weight of a kingdom. Her eyes burned with tears, but in her heart she felt a steady voice rising. Do not fear. The path of truth is never easy, but it must be walked. Before dawn, Adana dressed again in her white wrapper. She covered her head with a simple cloth and tied the gourd of water to her waist. The palace guards were still asleep, and even her mother, the queen, rested in silence. Adana stepped out quietly, her staff in hand. The path to the cave was not new to her anymore, but her legs still shook as she walked. The forest was silent, except for the sound of her footsteps and the cry of owls. The air was heavy, as if the trees themselves knew what awaited. She reached the mouth of the cave just as the sun began to rise. Its golden light touched the rocks, making them glow faintly. Adana stood before it, breathing deeply. This is the moment, she whispered. No more running, no more fear. She stepped inside. The darkness of the cave welcomed her again. Almost immediately, the shadows began to stir. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly, their smoky forms moving restlessly. She has returned, one cried. The chosen daughter has come, another whispered. Adana walked slowly to the center of the cave, her staff striking the ground with each step. The shadows pressed closer, their voices full of desperation. Obina, their leader, stepped forward. His form flickered, but his voice carried strength. Adana, daughter of Umueze, have you come with our answer? Will you free us from this endless night? Adana's hands trembled around her staff. She lifted her head, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Yes, she said firmly, I have made my choice. The shadows hushed. The cave grew so silent that even the dripping of water from the rocks seemed to stop. I have seen the suffering of my people, Adana continued, her voice steady though her chest tightened. I have seen your sorrow too. I cannot pretend it is easy, but I will not let fear decide for me. Men and women were made to walk together. We have lived apart too long. It is time for balance to return. Obina's form shook, and for the first time, his hollow eyes glowed brighter. Then you will lift the curse? Adana raised her staff high. Yes, today the curse ends. The shadows erupted into cries of joy and disbelief. Some wept, some shouted, some bowed low. Their voices echoed through the cave like a storm of hope. Adana moved to the very heart of the cave where the ground was smoother and darker than the rest. She knelt there and pressed her palm to the earth. Her grandmother's staff glowed faintly, as if it knew the time had come. She closed her eyes and called out, Great goddess of Umuwes, hear me. I am Adana, daughter of this land. I stand here, not for myself, but for all who suffer, the women above and the shadows below. The curse has lasted long enough. I lift my hands, I raise my staff, and I call your name. Let the curse be broken. The ground trembled violently. Light burst from the tip of her staff, spreading across the walls of the cave like fire. The shadows cried out, covering their hollow faces as the light grew stronger. Let their chains be broken, Adana cried louder, her voice echoing like thunder. Let the sons of Umuwes rise again as men. Let balance return to the land. The earth roared beneath her. A great wind swirled through the cave, pulling the shadows into its light. Their cries turned from sorrow to joy as their smoky forms began to change. Adana opened her eyes, and what she saw filled her with awe. The shadows no longer flickered. One by one, they began to take shape. Arms, legs, faces, real human faces appeared. Their hollow eyes turned brown, black, and filled with tears. Their smoky voices became deep human voices. Obina himself stood before her, no longer a shadow but a tall, strong man. His skin was dark, his eyes shone, and his tears streamed down his cheeks. We are free, he whispered, his voice breaking. After generations, we are free. The men looked at their hands, their bodies, and fell to the ground in gratitude. Some shouted for joy, some wept openly. The cave that once held only darkness now shook with life. Adana lowered her staff, her heart pounding. She had done it. The curse was broken. When Adana returned with the men following behind her, the village of Umuwes erupted in shock. Women dropped their calabashes of water. Children ran behind their mothers, and elders gasped in disbelief. Men! One woman screamed. Spirits of men! They have returned! Another cried, covering her face in fear. The queen herself rushed out of the palace, her eyes wide. Adana, what have you done? Adana walked forward, her voice calm but firm. Mother, I have lifted the curse. The shadows are men again. They will walk with us once more. The queen trembled, torn between fear and awe. Obina stepped forward, bowing low before her. Great queen, forgive us. We betrayed once, but we have suffered and learned. We return not with pride, but with humility. We seek only to live again among our people. The women murmured among themselves, uncertain. Some still trembled, but others began to soften as they looked into the men's eyes and saw not monsters, but fathers, brothers, and sons. As days passed, the fear slowly melted. The men proved themselves humble. They helped on the farms, built homes, fetched water, and cared for children. Families began to reunite. Women who had lost fathers or brothers generations ago wept as they embraced their bloodlines again. One evening, Adana stood in the village square as drums sounded and fires burned high. The people gathered, their faces filled with a joy that had not been seen in years. A woman named Ifunanya stepped forward, holding the hand of her son. Tears streamed down her face. My son has a father again. He will know the strength of a man's hand, not only his mother's tears. Adana, you have given us this gift. Another woman, Ngozi, lifted her hands. We feared them, but we see now. They are flesh like us. They work, they laugh, they cry. The balance is restored. Even the queen, who had resisted, finally embraced Adana. My daughter, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You were braver than all of us. You carried the burden none of us would touch. Today, I call you not only daughter, but savior of Umueze. From that day, the people of Umueze gave Adana a new name. Around fires, in the market, even in the palace, her story was told. She is Adana, the daughter who chose. Children grew up hearing her name, learning how one young woman carried the weight of both men and women and made the choice that healed the land. The kingdom was never the same again. Men and women walked side by side, carrying both memory and lesson. The elders kept the story alive so that no one would forget the price of pride or the power of balance. And Adana herself, though still young, became a symbol of courage. She had not only faced shadows, but also faced the hardest truth, that true leadership is not in ruling, but in choosing for the good of all. One night, years later, Adana sat quietly under the stars, the staff of her grandmother still by her side. She looked at the rivers, flowing strong again, and listened to the laughter of children in the distance. Her heart swelled with peace. I did not choose for myself, she whispered. I chose for all, and that is enough. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if the goddess herself smiled down in approval. And so, the story of Umueze lived on. A kingdom once broken, made whole again by a daughter's choice. The story of Adana teaches that true strength lies in making choices that bring peace and unity, even when fear and doubt surround us. It shows that men and women are created to complement each other. And when one is missing, life loses balance. Through courage, forgiveness, and wisdom, even the deepest wounds of the past can be healed, and a new beginning can rise. Thank you so much for watching. Your love and support mean everything to me. If this story inspired you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones to spread the inspiration. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more interesting African stories. See you in the next video. Bye.